This is the story of Brainy the RPG cat, and in many ways it's a very typical story. One day an old man found a stray kitten in a library, and he chose to keep it as a mascot, and to keep him in gentle company. But this was no ordinary old man, for he was Bosch, the high elf headmaster of the Library of Dinah, a very not ordinary library dedicated to the goddess of all living knowledge. And before long, Bosch would learn that this was also no ordinary cat.
Hello.
Learning that the cat was intelligent, the wizard took it upon himself to teach him to read and write, and learn history and the ways of magic. He was quite taken with the lessons he got from games using cards and dice. And soon the cat grew into an adult, a scholar, a full-fledged wizard in his own right, and once and forever one of the most dedicated librarians in Denier. The wizard bestowed upon him a name in the tradition of all cat people. He who astounds with his immediately brilliant ideas, but the library wizards have taken to calling him Brainy the RPG cat. And let me tell you, it hasn't been a bed of roses.
Brainy the cat. Brainy the RPG cat. It's a kitty cat.
Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another episode of Brainy the RPG Cat. Tonight, we are going to be reading Into the Deep Dark, the second module from Gamehole Games, a 5e module that comes from Gamehole Publishing. This is the second book that we're reading out of the very, very large set of 5e rule sets that we downloaded from Humble Bundle. And, this one, just should really be interesting. So, let's go ahead and let's start to look into it. But first, let me take a moment in order to talk to you about one of our sponsors, which is Well of the Worlds. So, let's go ahead and head over to the main screen so that we can have a very good look at this. All right, well, oopsie doodles. Well, okay, well, I didn't set up the window capture correctly, but hey, it's your little peek into the fourth wall. So anyways, thank you once again for tuning in. This stream is sponsored, of course, by the Well of the Worlds Kickstarter by Mobius Worlds Publishing, Rem Alternus Productions, and Well of the Worlds, of course, is written by Michael Serbrook. So, welcome to the Well, where the Bermuda Triangle ends. The Well of the Worlds is a campaign setting for the Prowlers and Paragons tabletop RPG meant to evoke the feel of Japanese isekai and Western portal fantasy tales. As with many classic examples of the genre, much of a player's and their characters' experiences during a session will come from exploring the Well. As the campaign progresses, they will learn more about the Well's peculiar climate, discover strange ruins, wonder at the unusual sky, and meet numerous people who are definitely not from Earth. And as is the case with many of these stories, the characters slowly discover that they have strange and unusual powers in this new world, and that this peaceful paradise holds a dark secret. As the setting subtitle says, this is where the Bermuda Triangle ends. So, what is Prowlers and Paragons? Prowlers and Paragons Ultimate Edition is everything you need to create unique superheroes and play exciting stories right out of the comic books and movies. There are countless powers and power options, extensive rules for gear, vehicles, and even headquarters, a massive assortment of animals and non-player characters, and extensive guidance to help game masters run the most engaging superhero games possible. Prowlers and Paragons Ultimate Edition is super flexible with easy, intuitive game mechanics, but still contains enough crunch to keep every character from feeling the same. Character creation is fast, fun, and allows just about any concept that you can come up with. What is the world? What is the well? What is the well? What is the world? What is the Well of the Worlds? That's what we're talking about here. Imagine a world where the weather is perfect day in and day out, where it seems to be perpetually midsummer with no rainy season or periods of drought to interrupt the endless, pleasant days, when the sun always rises at the same time and in the same place, and sets 14 hours later. Where crops can be grown year-round, meaning everyone has enough to eat without the lean periods that plague less fortunate worlds. Where are there multiple humanoid peoples dwelling for the most part in harmony? Can you imagine such a world? Well, then welcome to the Well of the Worlds. Designed as a standalone pocket universe, the Well was originally connected to assorted alternate dimensions and worlds throughout the multiverse. It is from these worlds that the park's intended visitors originally came. Currently, the Well is still connected to a multitude of other universes, but the connections are unstable and tend to drift and or open erratically. In addition, the Well is by its very nature prone to collect errant hyperspace jaunts, teleportation errors, lost dimensional portals, and the like. Think of it this way: the Well of the World sits at the bottom of the multiverse, slowly collecting all the interdimensional detritus that drifts down the verse, eventually fetching up within the Well itself. So this is the Well of the World's upcoming Kickstarter from Mobius Worlds Games, Rem Alternus Productions, and written by Michael Serbrook. So be sure to check out Well of the Worlds through this link. We will sign you up
for the mailing list. We once you're on the mailing list, you will be informed about when the launch of the official Kickstarter is currently scheduled for April the 4th. So, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much to your support. And now, let's go ahead and let's go on to start reading tonight's featured book, Into the Deep Dark by Gamehole Publishing, a 5e module. Alright. So, this is Into the Deep Dark. Once again, this is the second book that we've read by Alex Kammer and published by Gamehole Publishing. Gamehole Publishing, I believe, not necessarily a full-time module publishing studio, but I do believe that they run a local con, and so I don't want to give up too much misinformation when it comes up to that, but at the very least, lets you know that, primarily they are in the con business, and they have several of these modules published for 5e. So, let's see. This is the cover. It's a great looking cover, I think. I think we'll find out who the cover artists are at the moment. And this is the map of, primarily of the dungeon that we're going to be looking at. Let's see. Dundell, containing administration office, a barracks, an inn, the ceaseless sucre, a warehouse, a cistern, a storage facility, a armory, a smithy, and Errol Runnell's bedchamber, Erlen Tell's bedchamber, the parlor dreams of the guard chamber. O.S. Devon says, I'm missing this lore. Well, you'll always have the VOD later if you are truly curious about what we're talking about. But thank you very much for signing in for tonight's raid. Ordinarily I do try to keep the lore pages on days where my main admin O.S. Devon is usually able to see, but I didn't have that opportunity tonight because I was going through just a few personal issues. At any rate, thank you very much for tuning in for the much you could, and I hope you enjoy your raid tonight. Alright, so let's take a look at the page 1 here. Into the Deep Dark from Gamehole Publishing, Module AK2, an adventure for 4 to 6 characters of level 3 to 5 by Alex Kammer. Authored by Alex Kammer. The cover artist is Dan Francie. The interior illustrators are Errol Otis, Jeff Butler, Terry Pavlett, Jason Braun, Adele Tiegler, Britt Martin, Jeff Easley, Diesel LaForce, Dan Francie, Errol Otis, cartographers Dan Francie and Lloyd Metcalf, editor Scott Fitzgerald Gray, and playtesting is through Alan Hammock, Karma Samadi, Douglas Huff, Scott Brand, Ingo Sherman, and Kurt Gold. Published by Gamehole Publishing, a 5th edition module. The following items are hereby identified as product identity as defined in the open game license and are not open content. All trademarks, registered trademarks, proper names, dialogue, plot, storylines, language, incidents, locations, characters, artwork, and trade dress. Alright. So, page 1. The story so far. The town of Agnes Hole, located on the banks of the Oriana River, has long been home to a thriving mining industry. The area's chief mineral export is copper, along with a semi-precious derivative, azurite, a deep blue crystal produced by the weathering copper ore deposits. And, this was a material that we were also describing in the previous Gamehole Publishing module that we had done before. A significant amount of these stories are just deal with the mining of azurite. But little did the folk of Agnes Hold suspect that when azurite is crushed into powder, it produces an incredibly powerful euphoric effect when ingested by brain gorgers and other psychic energy feeding monsters in the Deep Dark. Seeing an opportunity to exploit the area's Azerite stocks, a criminal organization known as the Ceaseless installed operatives in Agni's Hold, charging them with providing a steady supply of refined and powdered Azerite for a highly lucrative sale in the Deep Dark. Things started well enough for the Ceaseless, whose operatives successfully rerouted a portion of the refined Azerite out of Agni's Hold and back to one of the mines in the Copper Hills where it had been originally dug. From there, the Azerite could be shipped directly into the Deep Dark. This scheme was overseen by a ceaseless operative named Marlip, a brain gorger who directed the operation from his lair deep in the mine. And everything was working smoothly until Marlip tried the tasties, what the brain gorgers all called a powdered Azerite, for himself. The effect was instantaneous and powerful. The highly addictive substance quickly took hold of Marlip, compromising his thinking and his actions alike. Previously cold and calculating, the brain gorger became paranoid, irrational, and delusional. He convinced himself that without more direct action, the supply of tasties would be compromised, an outcome that he could not endure. So Marlip hit upon the drastic action of controlling the mind of Baron Rainson, the ruler of Agni's Hold, with his enslavability. He then had the Baron's Chamberlain Bryce captured and replaced with a doppelganger. The effects were felt immediately in Agni's Hold. The Baron's personality seemed to change overnight, causing him to fire most of his long-term advisors, even as he elevated the Chamberlain into his second-in-command. In broader terms, the governance of the barony began a steep slide that was noticed quickly by the Baron's remaining advisors and many of the folk in Agni's Hold. So, in terms of backstory, this is incredibly similar to the Brain Gorgers, the module that we had run before. So, I'm pretty sure that this is a sequel. We'll just go ahead and we'll follow into that. Okay. At this point, one of the only remaining Old Guard members of the Baron's staff, High Steward Tavares, took the extraordinary step of hiring a group of adventurers to find out what was affecting the Baron, who was behind it. Following a series of clues and surviving a number of dangerous encounters, these adventurers traced the secret plots affecting the Baron all the way back to the ceaseless operative Marlip and his Copper Hills mine hideout. The final encounter in the Brain Gorger's Appetite, the first module in the series. Okay, the Brain Gorger's Appetite, that's what I was having a hard time remembering. Saw the adventurers clash with Marlip and his minions deep within the mines. Despite the awesome power of the Brain Gorger, the characters drove Marlip into the Deep Dark, thereby freeing the Baron from his mental enslavement. As the last adventure concluded, the adventurers were ready to make their way back to Agni's Hold to report to Tavares, the rescued Chamberlain Bryce, and a now freed Baron Rainson. This is designed for 4 to 6 characters of 3rd to 5th level, which they would be if they'd finished the previous module. Characters should be 3rd level at the beginning of the adventure and likely to attain the 4th level after surviving a drow ambush encounter in Act 3 of the adventure. They should attain 5th level before attempting the final encounter of Act 6, Marlip's Revenge. If you prefer story-based advancement in your campaigns, use the above guidelines to tell the players when to advance the characters to 4th and 5th level. Alright, so adventure summary: if you're a player, stop reading. The rest of this adventure is DMs only. So I'm going to do my level best in order to avoid too many spoilers when it comes to the outcomes of the adventures. I am going to try to, provide as much information I can without completely spoiling the adventure, in terms of outcome and specific advantages the players may receive in specific situations. But other than that, we're still going to go in and we're going to read a significant amount of this. After a harrowing encounter with the terrible and disturbing Brain Gorger Marlip, the adventurers returned to Agni's Hold to find and report to High Steward Tavares. When last in the town, the characters had liberated Chamberlain Bryce from the clutches of Brylant, a doppelganger minion of Marlip's, and had subsequently set off for the Copper Hills. The characters do not know whether Baron Rainson has been able to throw off the mental dominion imposed by Marlip and are thus returning into a very uncertain situation. The characters eventually gain an audience with Baron Reinson and his oldest and most trusted advisors, Tavros and Bryce. The Baron is himself again, but the characters find him understandably angry about what has been done to him, and clearly struggling to make sense of recent events. The one thing the Baron is absolutely sure of is that what happened to him should never happen again. As such, he charges the party with a specific mission to find and destroy the Brain Gorger Marlip, calling it a matter of state security and the highest priority. Important NPCs: Baron Oliver Reinson, hereditary ruler of Acme's Hold; Chamberlain Andre Bryce, former captain of the Doppelganger Brylant, who has since resumed his duties; High Steward Braxton Tavros, who hired the adventurers in the Brain Gorger's appetite, remains one of Baron Reinson's chief advisors. Marlip, a brain gorger working for the Ceaseless, once in charge of delivering Azurite into the deep dark, but now fled into that underground realm. Janice Tandon, newly appointed overseer of the mines where Marlip once made his lair. Xanthos, a sentient and friendly gelatinous cube that can provide much needed aid and direction to the characters as they explore the deep dark. Wow, we're actually dealing with an intelligent gelatinous cube. Brix Rockhewer. You know, that's a very macho name. That goes right there up there with Biff Hardcheese, Bob Johnson. Brickers Rockhewer, leader of a Sverviblin training caravan headed towards the surface settlement of Marabiza from the deep dark stronghold of Dundelv, a stronghold controlled by the Ceaseless. Earl Runnell, a half-orc were-rat who is the leader of Dundelv. Erlin Tylin, a drow outcast from the Dark Elf city of Fazanris. Fazanris, and El Runnell, second in command in Dundelv. You really shouldn't put F's and Z's next to each other. Fazanris, okay. Erlin Tylin, a drow outcast from the Dark Elf city of Zanris, and Earl Runnell's second in command in the Dundelv. Kevro Arroway and Zangold Greenfield, the two resident mages of Dundelv. And Fleur, a brain gorger currently at Dundelv, who might have useful information for the characters. When the characters accept the Baron's mission, they know that they are headed underground, and that seeking Marlip will invariably lead them far into the endless network of tunnels, caverns, and underground settlements in the deep dark. They are given time to pick up provisions suitable for such a mission before heading back to the mines in the Copper Hills. Characters with knowledge of the deep dark know that many of the intelligent inhabitants of the realm speak Undercommon. So, the deep dark in this situation is being used in place of the Underdark, which is, I believe, is really a Dungeons and Dragons trademark. Ideally, one or more of the characters will speak that language or be able to cast Comprehend language. If that's not the case, Tavros can arrange for the party to be given 6 potions of Comprehend language at no cost. After going through the secret door at the back of Marlip's former residence in the mine, the adventurers pick up the Brain Gorger's trail. The characters' descent into the deep dark plays out a number of distinct encounters, including an attack by a vicious Chul, a not interaction with an awakened and whimsical gelatinous cube named Xanthos, a drow ambush, and a meeting with a Svervenplin training caravan. So far, none of that is a spoiler, simply because it was also in the previous paragraph. Okay, so rock, brick chest, slab, hard stake, brickers, rockhewer. See, it works. It works perfectly. Eventually, their characters make their way into a Ceaseless stronghold in the deep dark known as the Dundelv. There, they attempt to contain information about Marlip from Dundelv's crooked commander, while trying not to run afoul of him or any of the other criminal descendants of the stronghold. After learning where Marlip is gone, the character's pursuit of the Brain Gorger takes them further into the deep dark. An attack by terrible tunnel trawlers, a trek through a fungal forest, and battle alongside a subterranean lake are among the challenges for characters faced before finally catching up with Marlip for a final showdown. Okay. Same quest, different heroes. This adventure assumes that the characters participated in the previous module and personally took part in driving off the foul brain gorger Marlip. If they did not, you can either fill that backstory by assuming the characters undertook that adventure off screen, explaining the events of the brain gorger's appetite to the players. Alternatively, you can run this adventure with a new group whose previously adventuring exploits have seen them hired to finish the job that the first group started. So, whatever circumstances bring the adventures before the Baron, they should have a clear understanding of what Marlip has done, the events of the previous module, and the fact that Marlip has fled through the secret door in the back of his lair into the deep dark. Start of the adventure, especially if you didn't use all the random encounters in Copper Hills, section of the Brain Gorger's Appetite. You can play out the character's trip to Ogni's Hold if you wish. Alternatively, you can simply narrate the trip to start the adventures as the characters return to town by way of the East Gate. Trouble at the Gates, read or paraphrase the following to players as the characters return to town. The trip back from the mines at the Copper Hills was largely uneventful, but after the fierce battle with Marlip and his minions, a few quiet days here are most welcome. As you approach Ogni's Hold from the east, you take stock of the tasks still left to you, including tracking down High Steward Tavris and reporting what you have learned, as well as enjoying a comfortable night in a proper inn. As you draw closer to the gate of the town, you notice a commotion of some sort. You spot the distinctive bright blue tabards of the Baron's men, as several members of that personal garrison appear to be escorting a manacled and well-armored figure out of the gate tower and along the street heading into town. As you draw closer, you recognize the arrested figure as Drast Grimbank, the half-orc captain of the Ogni's Hold town guard. Drast was one of the town officials hired on shortly after the Baron began to act so strangely. Perhaps the results of your expedition to the Copper Hills are already being felt here in Ogni's Hold. After seeing the fallen guard captain escorted toward the central keep, the characters are free to seek a place to rest and get a message to Tavris. A number of housing options are available for the party, but wherever the characters go, the town is abuzz with news from the keep. The Baron is apparently cleaning house by dismissing many of its advisors and ministers. The talk of a check. Let me see. The characters also notice that the overall mood of local folk has improved since they were last in town. Any message sent to Tavras is at the keep is responded to quickly. The High Steward seeks the adventurers out whether they are staying, wanting a complete report of what happened in the Counter Hills. You can run this as an encounter or simply summarize the meeting, but Tavris learns the full story of the characters' trip to the mines, what they found there, their confrontation with Marlip, and the Brain Gorger's subsequent flight. The interview ends with Tavares solemnly thanking the characters for their service, paying the 100 gold that they promised, and informing them that they will have an audience with the Baron tomorrow afternoon at the keep. Meeting with the Baron, however the characters spend the rest of their first day and the next morning is up to them. But they're expected when they eventually appear at the central keep, or read or paraphrase the following. After presenting yourself at the main gates of the keep, you are quickly escorted into the main building, past the great hall, and into one of the smaller council chambers. You immediately recognize three figures seated at the far end of the council table. Baron Reinson, flanked on either side by Chamberlain Bryce and High Steward Tavris. 4 members of the Baron's men stand behind the seated trio against the far wall. Though the Baron looks tired, he takes all of you in with a calm and level gaze. Glancing to his advisors and at either side, he sighs warily before he speaks. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your tremendous service to the barony. Even if I was completely unaware of it at the time, I am appalled and deeply embarrassed at what has happened. However, my own feelings are not important right now. What is important is the safety of my people. I cannot view this creature Marlip's actions as anything other than a direct attack on the barony. While I've heard tales of the creatures such as brain gorgers, I've never really believed that they existed, and I certainly never thought for a moment that their power would be directed against me. You have all done us a great service, but as I understand from my High Steward's report, the creature Marlip still lives. For the sake of the barony and my sanity, he must be destroyed. I charge you with hunting down the Brain Gorger, for the barony will not be secure as long as he lives. I cannot force you to take on this task, but if you do accept it, know that you will be handsomely rewarded, and the barony of Ra will forever be in your debt. Will you undertake this most important mission? Okay, skipping a paragraph on player choice right here. Um, Act 1, Return to the Copper Hills. The trip back to the mine that was Marlop's base of operations can be as eventful or as easy as you wish. The wagon camps and inns referenced in the Grain Gorger's Appetite remain options for characters looking for a place to stay at the end of the first day of travel. Day 2 sees the characters begin the gradual ascent into the Copper Hills. As before, the surrounding terrain changes the closer the characters get to the mines, with scrubs and grasslands slowly replaced with broken patches of trees and full forest. Feel free to break out the encounters described in the Brain Gorger's Appetite for the second night of travel, if they haven't already been used. Day 3 takes the party through the Copper Hills with the track they follow once more, leading them to the mines. Read or paraphrase the following, adding details as appropriate if the characters did not take part in the most recent adventure. After years of following the rough track, really nothing more than a parallel pair of wagon ruts, you sight your destination. The huge maw of the mine's entrance stands dark and empty behind the broad clearing before it, but smoke rises from the chimney of the nearby bunkhouse. 2 horses are tethered to a hitching rail in front of the building. Despite recent events, the ineluctable push of commerce seems to have the mines back in operation again. That is to say, is that ineluctable just is a very fancy way of saying unavoidable. The bunkhouse is currently occupied by Silas Jones and Bryn Haver, both commoners from Agni's Hold, who are at work preparing a meal for the other workers currently inside of the mine. Though a bit wary, they are welcoming to the characters and happy to answer any questions. They can relate that full operations resumed just 3 days ago, and that there have been no unusual incidents. A dozen miners in total are currently working in the mine, focusing their labor in the southeast tunnel. The new mine overseer is Janice Tandon, who has ordered the miners to steer clear of the northeast shaft, which terminates in Marlop's former lair. If the characters explain their purpose in coming to the mine, Silas and Bran are relieved to hear it, as the miners have all been understandably anxious about what a Brain Gorger do once it makes its fateful return. The Kobold Scouts. The characters head for the mine entrance, passing by the bunkhouse, a number of broken mine carts and some scattered mining tools as they go. So anyone with a successful perception check picks up on movement in the underbrush at the south edge of the clearing in front of the mine entrance. The kobolds that Marlip had previously coerced in the sentry service scattered when they heard the miners that Marlip had fled. However, not yet having found a suitable place to resettle, a party of 10 kobolds has returned in hope of reclaiming their own lair. Okay, so this culminates in a battle with kobolds. Okay, mine entrance. The mine entrance appears unchanged from the party's first foray. The interior of the mine is lit by intermittent torches, creating pools of dim light and shadow across the rough stone floor. A set of minecart tracks starts up 20 feet inside of the entrance, initially heading east for 100 feet before splitting to follow 2 mine shafts leading downward, one running southeast and the other running northeast. The shaft to the northeast is dark and silent. The shaft to the southeast is lit by the same intermittent torchlight seen at the mine entrance. The northeast mine shaft through the abandoned northeast shaft appears dark and sinister. The trip down should be uneventful as long as the party's previous excursion cleared out the Grick and the dark mantles that once lurked there from the Brain Gorger's Appetite. These dead creatures' remains are untouched, as they were in their previous locations. The Brain Gorger's lair. After descending past the bodies of the Grick and the dark mantles, the characters eventually reach the end of the shaft and Marlip's former lair. Read or paraphrase the following, making adjustments as necessary for specific events in the previous adventure. The long march down the dark mine shaft finally terminates in a large subterranean chamber, the state of which appears to be exactly as you left it. Unlike the tunnel behind you, this large space is gently lit by some sort of luminescent moss clinging to the rough stone walls. Stacks of crates bearing the insignia of Agni's hold still line the east wall, and all of Marlip's furnishings remain as they were left. The unmade four-poster bed, the wardrobe, the comfortable chair, not the comfortable chair. Wow, we are doing all of the really old sketch comedy jokes on tonight's episode. And the thoroughly ransacked writing table. You also see the corpses of Marlip's two terrible cerebral stalker companions, their toad-like mouths agape, in a frozen rictus of death that shows their razor-sharp teeth. The secret door at the back of the chamber is easily found again to those who know its location. The tunnel is where Marlip fled, and where you now must follow. The descent. When the characters step through Marlip's secret door, read or paraphrase the following. As you step through the threshold from Marlip's chamber into the darkness beyond, you understand immediately that you are about to leave your world behind. Gone are the hewn tunnels forged by sweat and iron that led you here. Instead, the tunnel before you is a gently winding natural passage that slopes ever deeper into the earth, created by some long-gone water flow or other process of erosion. The luminescent moss seen in Marlip's chamber is more prevalent here, giving the passageway a soft, uniform glow. But what you notice even more starkly is the utter stillness. Not a breath of air stirs, and the silence is nearly absolute. In fact, as you strain to hear anything, all you can make out is the sound of water dripping from far off in the distance. The surface world of sun and wind stands behind you, and the deep dark stands before you, waiting. General notes concerning the deep dark. Unless otherwise stated, the tunnels and passageways of the deep dark are approximately 10 feet tall and wide. Excuse me. These natural tunnels are generally smooth but not finished. Luminescent moss and fungus provides uniform dim light through most areas. The characters are likely to be on high alert as they enter this new world. In the first hour, the only change is that the sound of dripping water becomes slightly louder, though it still sounds distant, but in the relentless monotony of the events, the characters are able to recognize that the drips are quite regular, coming at 3-second intervals. Keeping time in the deep dark without the regular cycle of the visible sun, keeping time in the deep dark is a challenge. To assist with this, most encounters contain a reference to how much travel time has passed since the previous encounter. Okay. The Chul Pool. As the characters approach the tunnel intersection, read or paraphrase the following. After the unrelenting sameness of hours of travels, you finally see a change in the tunnel ahead. An opening on the right side of the passageway. As you draw closer, you can see that after 15 feet or so, this side passage opens to a larger cavern. A careful glance within it reveals a large pool of water that is the source of the mind-numbing dripping sound that you've heard since entering the deep dark. Every few seconds, a drop of water falls from the ceiling 15 feet above the pool, striking the surface with a loud echo. The pool looks to be 40 feet across, with approximately 20 feet of stone floor between it and the encircling wall. So then we get attacked by a chul, which is the lobster-like monster that's depicted. Stats are there in the manual. Then we follow that up with a description of treasure found. So then from there we go from Act 2 into Act 3, New Vistas. Shortly after the encounter with a chul, the tunnel the party is following will mercifully start to vary in size and in shape. Replacing the unrelenting sameness of the initial descent, the route repeatedly alternates between long, wide caverns and passageways that shrink back down to a 10-foot diameter. When the passage widens, the characters pass through large galleries filled with stalactites and stalagmites, all slick with moisture. The lighting varies in those areas, with some stretches of passageway brightly lit with luminescent moss glowing in a variety of hues. But in other areas, the moss light grows so dim that those in the party who cannot see in the dark will need to rely on artificial light over the guidance of cohorts with dark vision. Over approximately 3 hours, the characters also witness an increasing amount of fungi as they continue their gradual descent. Mushrooms of all sizes, shapes, and colors can be seen clinging to cavern walls, either growing up from the floor or hanging from the endless variety of rock formations that cover the ceilings. Okay, Xanthos. Approximately 3 hours after each encounter with the Chul, the characters approach another section of widening passageway. As they move forward, they discover that this gallery is different from those previously seen. At the far end of the area where the passageway should continue, the characters instead find their choice of 3 different routes ahead. Read or paraphrase the following. Over the last few hours, you have witnessed the amazing array of fungal flora and geological variation that makes up the deep dark. But as you traverse yet another wide fungus-filled gallery, you see that its far end is not tapered back down to a simple passageway. Rather, 3 passageways exit this chamber, each roughly 10 feet across, aside from the bearing off in 3 different directions to the left, center, and right. The passageways have no unique features to distinguish them. And just as you begin to puzzle out the choice of which way to go, you hear the approach of some creature in the center passage, moving towards you. As you reflexively prepare for whatever it might be, straining your vision to see, an odd-sounding voice calls out to you. Whatever creature speaks undercommon in a gentle and high-pitched voice, but with a sound like a whisper forced through tightly pursed lips. Greetings, surface dwellers. I mean you no harm. I'm merely a traveler, as are you. May I approach? I assure you I will do you no ill. The characters are about to meet Xanthos, an intelligent and awakened gelatinous cube. She makes for quite a bizarre sight where she rides on the back of a giant lizard, perched atop a platform lined with acid-resistant fungus mats. Xanthos is an extreme oddity, having come across an area of wild magic years before that granted her a measure of self-awareness and sentience, unknown amongst her other mindless scavenging kin. The gelatinous cube Xanthos is one of those rare creatures that breaks away from its species' predilections and tendencies to become something quite different. Unlike her scavenging brethren, Xanthos is insatiably curious about the world she lives in, and the other creatures that share it with her. As such, she could be played like a curious and clever child. The cube is true to her word, and at any point where the characters are interacting with Xanthos, there's a wisdom check here. Xanthos has plenty of helpful information for the party, all of which should be delivered in a whimsical and almost painfully cheerful manner. Full of questions herself, she can barely contain her excitement about meeting some real-life surface dwellers. Xanthos has learned to speak by vibrating her upper surface in a way that articulates understandable sound. This results in the odd gentle whisper through which she speaks. Because Xanthos speaks only undercommon, one or more characters may be able to speak that tongue and communicate through magical means in order to interact with her. Being bereft of limbs makes communication with any other form virtually impossible for the gelatinous cube. Any conversation with Xanthos can go a number of different directions. The following questions and answers cover general information and can be used as guidelines. What are you? What a silly question. I'm a cube, of course. What is that creature you ride? It's a drow-riding lizard. He is magnificent, is he not? How'd you come to ride such a creature? I found Greenie alone while in the deep dark. We became fast friends and have been together ever since. How did you make that saddle that you ride? I did not. A most kind and helpful Sverniflin built it for me. Is it not nice? How'd you become the way you are? What a silly question. I've always been this way. Have you not always been you? Okay, and so there's stats for both the Xanthos and the giant lizard here. I don't really even think that much of it is going to be you're probably not going to be in a situation where you're going to want to fight this, but if players actually end up going that route, I'm pretty sure that they won't be in a situation where they're going to want to, where they're not going to want to defend themselves. What do you eat? Well, there are lots of nasty things living down here. I stay away from them. But the good thing for me is that they often kill each other, and then I can come along and clean up what is left. There are drow and dwergar, among them even nastier things like brain gorgers. Really? Well, that one that comes through here occasionally did so recently. How long ago? Oh, you mean time, but time is different here than the surface world, I think. It's either time to eat, time to sleep, time to travel, or time to think. My best guess would be 5 or 6 for your sleeps. And what way did the brain gorger go? It head towards Dundwell. This is where many brain gorgers head of late. Where is Dundelve? It's a place down here that some surface dwellers built. They are not like you. They drove me away when I tried to talk to them. How big is Dundell? How many surface dwellers live there? How? This is getting into spoiler territory. Where are the cubes? Which way to Dundell? How far away is it from here? In addition to the answers, Xanthos has a number of questions of her own. As with the party's questions, use these guidelines. What does the sky look like? Does it hurt to see the sun? I've heard of these things called flowers. What do they smell like? If the characters either do not respond when Xanthos calls to them, or if they drive away, they lose a significant source of information. Wisdom check here. As the party continues around the correct path to Dundell, the general terrain features continue as noted above. The only significant difference is that many small side passages start to split off from the larger main tunnel. If the characters choose to explore these passages, you might wish to make use of some of the encounters in the Fun in the Deep Dark section below to get them back on track. But either way, make sure it remains clear to the players that the main tunnel is the more frequently traveled route. So, in the event that, you don't end up using Xanthos as a guide, you're effectively using this information in order to ferret out clues to decide which one of the tunnels is the correct one. Drow ambush. A few hours after leaving Xanthos behind, the characters become victims of a Drow ambush. The Drow city of Fanzeras leads far to the south, but the matron mothers who rule it have become displeased with the presence of surface dwellers establishing a presence in the Deep Dark at Dundelve. As such, they've begun to send scouting parties to the area to disrupt the activities of the stronghold. The scouting party is comprised of 7 Drow males led by a Deep Dark scout named Stavek. The Dark Elves heard the characters approaching and set up an ambush, assuming that the characters must be surface dwellers associated with the Dundelve. Their goal is to incapacitate the characters and then interrogate them for information on Dundelve and its activities. The Draw's familiarity with the Deep Dark should allow them to get the drop on the party. As the party approaches the ambush point, reader paraphrase the following. After the surreal experience with Xanthos, the journey onward quickly returns to a tense march through the Deep Dark. You move forward into another side and stretch of caverns set with damp stalagmites and stalactites, but then suddenly the glow of the luminescent moss is replaced by a deep and unrelenting gloom. From all around you can hear the faint tick of crossbows firing. You are under attack. The ultimate goal of the Drow is to subdue the characters and interrogate them. This encounter can end in a number of different ways, whether the characters are compelled to speak with the Drow, voluntarily speak with the Drow, or kill all the Dark Elves. In either of the first 2 scenarios, Stevik talks about the fortress controlled by the surface dwellers and asks about the number of inhabitants, the detail of the settlement's defenses, and the name of its leader. Okay. There are 2 guides, and there are there are 2 monster profiles here, and they're both for the Drow and the Deep Dark Scouts, and also a map of where they're hiding within the stalagmite. Okay. Drow tactics and positions. The ambush site is depicted on the tactical map. Indicates the starting position. Half of the Drow cast darkness along the walls, cutting the moss light and leaving the characters visible to dark vision. The other Drow fire their hand crossbows, hoping that at least a few of the adventurers succumb to the poison. The Drow attempt to keep the half-cover their positions initially afford them for as long as possible, preferring to fight at a range rather than closing in onto melee. So there is a discussion about how to commence the Drow and description of treasure. 3C, Fun in the Deep Dark. After the Drow ambush, the grinding march resumes. The characters have been in the Deep Dark for at least 12 hours by this point, but the decision of whether to camp or rest or pass on is up to the players. If the players do press on, they will be affected by exhaustion or rising from a forced march. The following encounters can be thrown at the characters at any point on the way to Dundelve. You can roll a d6 to determine an encounter randomly, or simply pick out encounters that appeal to you. Discussion of a Grimlock hunting party. 13 Grimlocks bearing some axes lie in ambush with 2 side passages, busting forth to attack the party with 2 flanks. Ballet, as the characters proceed down a nondescript passageway. Hungry Ballet suddenly burrows out of the wall directly beside them. Cloaker. A cloaker lurks motionless on the ceiling of the passageway through which the characters move. Basilisk glare as the characters move past the side passage. Any character with passive wisdom hears the sounds of claws scrabbling on the rock. If the characters explore the side passage, it turns to the right after 20 feet. Beyond that point, a basilisk will sit in the middle of the passage. A Dwergar scouting party. Just as the establishment of Dundell has stirred up the drow of Xanris, the increased presence of drow in the local area has caused the Dwergar colony of Grimstone to send out a scouting party of its own. Just in case you don't know, a Dwergar is a type of dwarf that tends to live in the Underdark. Alright. And Greater Flail Snail. As the characters make their way through a wide passageway, they come across quite a sight, a Greater Flail Snail. And so, they do have the monster profile for the Flail Snail, but nothing else that was also previously described. Those are all animals that you can previously look up in the standard monster manual. Okay, the Sverneblin, I'm still having a hard time, just finding this one pronunciation, but, this is only one difficult pronunciation. The rest of them were, the ones that were reading in official 5e books were a lot more complicated than these. Okay, a Svernevlin trading caravan in a large stretch of wide passageway. The adventurers hear the unmistakable sound of a large group of creatures heading towards them. Though there is nowhere to hide in the passageway, the characters have time to take whatever defensive measures they like. After they do so, read or paraphrase the following. As you brace yourself for whatever is coming towards you, you're astonished to see that the source of the racket appears to be some sort of caravan. More than 24 well-armed gnomes with gray skin stride alongside 3 of the largest moles you've ever seen, each of which pulls a wagon laden with goods. As the lead gnomes notice you, they hold up their fists in apparent stop, and the caravan rumbles to a halt. Quickly, one of the gnomes steps up to the fore, eyeing you as she lightly calls out in Undercommon, "Identify yourselves, be ye friend or foe." Okay, so the caravan totals 30 Snarvipplin and 3 huge blind moles, each of which pulls a small wagon laden with goods. The Sverfnefblin. I'm trying to take it phonetically at this point. Sverfnefblin. I think that's what it is. Sverfnefblin. Show no surprise at seeing a group of well-armored surface dwellers in the deep dark, although they are wary. Once the characters have established that they are not a threat, the caravan leader, Bricker's Rockhewer, introduces himself and speaks to them in Undercommon. She tells the party that the caravan is heading towards the surface to trade with the settlement of Marabiza, and that they are coming from Dundelve. At the last leg of their journey, they close to the surface. The caravan is to meet with a broker who will sell the Sverneblin goods to the surface folks. Breakers can answer any questions about Dundelve, telling the characters that the fortress is a full settlement, made up mostly of surface dwellers, and it even has an inn and a garrison. She also mentions that the place is run by humanoids calling themselves the Ceaseless. Primarily a trading post, Dundelve sees goods from the surface world brought into the deep dark to trade with the denizens of that well, including the Sverneblin. The deep gnomes all know that the commander of the outpost, Earl Runner, a half-orc were-rat, is a crook and not to be trusted. Prickers tell the characters that anyone seeking entrance to Dundwell will need to pay an entrance fee, will be thoroughly questioned, and must have a good reason for being admitted, usually related to businesses in the outpost. However, she knows that Earl Runnell is notoriously susceptible to bribery and is said to be willing to sell out anything if enough coin is involved. If asked about Marlip, none of the Sverneblin know that name, but they have seen brain gorgers at Dundelve. Breakers can even describe some sort of private lounge where the brain gorgers lie around, quote, getting all gorked up on some kind of blue powder sold by the Ceaseless. Dundelve is about 2 hours from the point where the characters meet the Sverneblin caravan. Okay, Dundelve. By now, the characters are likely to have been traveling through the deep dark for approximately 24 hours. As they enter the cavern that is for the ceaseless, reader paraphrase the following. After what seems like nearly a full day of traveling through the deep dark, the main passageway that you have been following opens to one of the biggest galleries seen so far. As you enter, you see that the cavern widens to over 100 feet in places, while the ceiling above soars to heights of over 80 feet. Extending hundreds of feet ahead of you, the huge gallery opens up to at least a half dozen other passages of the same size as the one through which you enter. To the west side of the cavern, a great fortress is perched up the top of a 40-foot high plateau, reached by the long natural ramp over 20 feet wide. The structure is roughly rectangular and approximately 100 feet long and 50 feet wide. Tall walls of black stone make up the perimeter of the stronghold, complete with towers located at each corner of the compound. A large signal showing a balanced scale with a stack of coins on one side and a clenched fist on the other is emblazoned on the stout wooden gates. The symbol of the ceaseless, it is the symbol of the ceaseless, and you have found Dundelve. The characters are free to explore the cavern around Dundelve, but they find nothing of interest there besides the omnipresent bioluminescent moss and fungus and the passages exiting the huge chamber. All those passages show signs of travel, but provide no signs or clues to where they lead. Okay, so there's a trick here to enter, which I won't read. As the characters ascend the ramp, they are hailed from one of the closer towers, first in common and then in undercommon. A commanding voice tells them to identify themselves and their business. To succeed, okay, staying alive to Dundelve. Okay, so this is just a section before the last paragraph in the same section that I'm about to read. Dundelve has the potential to become a deadly series of encounters for even a well-prepared, well-organized party. A base of operations for a powerful criminal organization. The stronghold is unlike any settlement of the surface would be that the characters are likely or familiar with. Dundelve exists for one reason only, and it's to serve the ceaseless. If the characters are cavalier, or if they attempt a full-on assault, the adventure will most certainly end up in a TPK. In fact, Dundelve sports approximately 90 armed and trained operatives. There is simply no way that the players can survive an open assault. To succeed at their infiltration of Dundelve, the characters must obey the rules of the stronghold, keep a low profile, role-play well, and most importantly, show no sign of openly opposing the ceaseless. With the flow of highly profitable azurite from Octing's hold interrupted, the members of the ceaseless are actively searching for Marlip themselves because they want answers. When the adventurers show up asking questions about Marlip, the powers that be in Dundelve become more than a little interested in learning why the characters are looking for the Brain Gorger, as well as what they know about the ceaseless's business with Marlip, the azurite trade, and Octing's hold. Okay. After a few minutes, the gates swing open. The characters see 10 sentries of various races standing in semicircle just inside the gates, all with crossbows trained on their party. A well-armed and well-armored dwarf then steps forward to wave the party inside the gates. As the characters enter, reader paraphrase the following. You walk past the stout gate and the fortress's thick 15-foot-high walls. Entering a courtyard behind, immediately to right, you see posts and pickets, obviously intended to tie up cart animals. Beyond that, and to both sides of the courtyard, a number of large buildings rise from the bluff, including one standing 2 stories tall. A dwarf that ushered you in calls out in a gruff voice. My name is Captain Stoneview. We have a few rules here in the Dwelve. Weapons are prohibited. You must obey all commands given. If you're willing to surrender your weapons, I'll take you in to speak with the commander. He'll have some questions for you, and yes, you'll get your weapons back when you leave. Okay, so while skipping a paragraph of some of the dwarves' tactics. Unless otherwise stated, all areas of Dundelve are illuminated with the dim light from the phosphorescent moss. This grows naturally in the rough caverns of the stronghold and is cultivated in hanging lamp baskets in other areas. The other doors of the stronghold are made of hardwood, banded with iron, and locked. All the important figures in Dundelve wear rings of message, including Commander Earl Runnell, Erlin Thailand, Captain Stoneview, and the mages Kevror Arroway and Zanfold Greenville. The 120-foot range of the rings means that any of these characters can communicate from each other from virtually anywhere in Dundalk, as long as their messages have an open route from one character to another. The characters can ask Captain Stoneview any questions they like, but he has little interest in telling them anything beyond the name of the commander. Stoneview says that only that it is against regulations to discuss any potential clients of Dundalk, and that the characters should take up any such business up with the commander. General notes on Dundalk, previously run by Earl Runnell, a half-orc were-rat. Though greedy and mean-spirited, he's a capable administrator. His lieutenant is a drow named Erlen Tylen, an outcast from the city of Fenzeris. If the party seeks to broker a deal of any sort with Dundalk, they must either talk to Earl Runnell or Erlen Tylen. Only these two commanders have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the ceaseless. The captain leads the party through a door into an Anderson office. We are paraphrased the following. Beyond the reception room, Captain Stoneview stops before another door, where he knocks and calls out, "Commander, we have visitors." A gruff voice answers, "Enter." Stoneview enters the door and then ushers you into what is obviously a large office, where a rat in hybrid form will be sitting behind a large desk. Obviously hoping his appearance intimidates you, the figure speaks with a wicked grin. "Surprised? Well, I guess I can't blame you. My type don't go around revealing what are up on the surface. But here in the deep dark, I'm nothing unusual at all." The were-rat's grin fades as Stoneview steps out of the office and closes the door. "My name is Earl Runnell, and I am the commander here. Now state your business. What brings an armed party of surface dwellers to Dundalk?" Earl is as shrewd in his coming as they come. However, he's also extremely greedy, and he uses his position at Dundalk to line his own pockets at every opportunity. The character's first order of business is to sell their cover story with role-playing. Any fellow party members chiming to help with the discussion grant advantage for the character making the check. If the characters convince Earl that they have legitimate business in Dundalk, he imposes a 100 gold tariff on each party member. A second round of negotiation can cut that tariff to 50 gold points apiece. Earl makes it clear that if the characters refuse to play, they will be forcibly ejected from Dundalk. Okay, what Earl knows. So let me see. Okay, so skip the first two paragraphs because, those involve checks. But if the characters pay Earl at least 100 gold more for information on Marlip, read or paraphrase the following. The gleam of avarice in the commander's eyes is apparent as he quickly tucks your money into his purse, then looks at you with a hard gaze. "Well, maybe we can help each other. My organization is very interested in locating and having a conversation with Marlip, and I'm just as keen for that to not happen. I don't know what your real business is with him, and I don't really care, but I'm guessing that Marlip was here a few days ago. I say guessing because none of us knew that was his real name. He showed up at our gates as a strung-out brain gorger in desperate need of a fix. He paid the entry tariff and then brought some of the tasties those vile creatures are so crazy about. Then he vanished. It wasn't until after he was gone from Dundalk that I got word from Marlip had abandoned his post in the mines. But my problem now is I'll be in more than a bit of trouble if my superiors find out that I had him here and let him go. So I need the brain gorger to disappear, and I don't have the resources to chase him through the deep dark. If you can run that scum down and make sure no one in my organization ever has a chance to talk to him, I'll reward you very well. What say you?" Overwhelming adversaries. Given that they are left alone with Earl in his office, the characters might opt to simply attack the commander rather than negotiate with him. However, even by himself, Earl should be more than a match for the party. See the stat block in the appendix, especially once he uses his ring of message to alert Captain Stoneview outside of the office, who in turn sounds a general alarm. Let's see. Yeah, ring of message. Description of ring of message as an item. Okay, so key to Dundalk. So this is kind of a recap about how to strategize your way through everything that you've seen, everything that we've already described so far. The game's mages play two ceaseless mages, Kevror Arroway, a male human mage, and Zangle Greenfield, a female half-elf archmage, are stationed at Dundelve, and they monitor the stronghold at all times. If the characters try to engage either of the mages, both come off as high-handed and dismissive, making it clear that they think that the characters are beneath them. However, the characters should get the distinct impression that the mages are watching them. Caves. Two separate caverns extend the bluff on which Dundelve is set. The southern cavern is accessed by way of the administration offices, while the northern cavern opens up between the inn and administration officers. So then the description of, just the interior of the caves: there's a cistern, there's a storage facility, there's an armor and a smith. There is Earl Runnell's bedchamber, Ern Talon's bedchamber, a parlor of dreams, and a guard chamber. Exploring Dundelve. Dundelve has been quite a profitable enterprise for the Ceaseless, in addition to the punishing tariffs extracted on traders moving goods through the stronghold. The Order has earned a small fortune supplying brain gorgers with tasties. Once a month, a heavily armored escort arrives by way of the teleportation circle in the cistern, checking Earl's ledgers and taking the stronghold's earnings back to the service. The characters are allowed to wander while on their own in Dundelve, though the expectation is that they're not going to be wandering far. Captain Stoneview directs them first to the Ceaseless Sucre, so they can try to rest up and eat before continuing their investigation. He then gives them leave to seek out the Parlor of Dreams, Area 10, when they are ready to interview the two brain gorgers who might have communicated with Marlin. Okay. In the Parlor of Dreams, the characters' best sources of useful information are the Brain Gorgers, currently in the Parlor of Dreams. When they're ready to talk to those creatures, they can seek out Parlor by way of the administration offices. Once they enter the southern cavern, we paraphrase the following. Beyond the administration offices, you see the natural stone walls of a cavern leading off into the distance. The glow of artificial light fills the chamber to your left, where four armed guards shift their attention to you from the wooden door set into the opposite side of the passageway. One of the guards nods towards the wooden door. This is the Parlor of Dreams, as we call it, where we let those disgusting brain gorgers use their drugs. The two of them in there now call themselves Gorple and Fleur. We don't know if they know each other or not. One of them has been here about a week and the other a few days longer. Not that we can tell which is which. They've been consuming a lot of the product, though, so be careful with them. Just knock on the door when you want to come out. The chamber beyond the door is completely dark. The air cold and damp. Oh well, first here's an illustration of the two brain gorgers that are inside of the well, for lack of a better word, inside of the drug den. Okay. Chamber beyond the door is completely dark, the air cold and damp. Light spilling in from the corridor reveals an oddly decorated natural cavern with several pieces of mismatched furniture scattered around. The elaborately gilded and tasseled couches and chairs might have been considered fine years ago, but the yacht collection has clearly seen better days. On a low fainting couch is filled by a supine brain gorger whose disgusting visage turns slowly from staring at the ceiling to watch as you enter. A second brain gorger is seated on a chair, staring fixedly straight ahead as if taking in some vision only it can see. With a jarring slam, the door behind you is closed and locked from the outside. You're now alone with these vile creatures. Beyond their minimal movement as the party enters, the two brain gorgers otherwise show no reaction to the characters. Neither standing or watching them nor moving around in the room provokes any sort of reaction. These two brain gorgers are so intoxicated as to be little threat to the party. Neither can remember their spells, nor can they use their stunning pulse or enslave abilities without sobering up significantly. Okay, so a lot of information about how to interrogate these characters, which I won't read. And then then we go into Act 5, On the Road Again. Whether the characters finish their business at Dundelve, they can head out to the next stage of their journey. Any basic supplies they need can be purchased from the Ceaseless through Earl Runnell at 3 times the normal cost. Following Fleur's directions and heading northwest takes the party further into the reaches of the deep dark. The northwest passageway, indicated by Fleur, has the same general appearance as the route the party followed to reach Dundelve, with a large central thoroughfare interrupted by smaller branching side passages from time to time. And okay, so information on checks. As I continue through the passages, the character spots specific signs of Marlip having come through ahead of them, including spaces where a medium humanoid had sprawled in large patches of fungus showing traces of blue azurite. If the characters stray from this main route for any reason, you can make use of Fun in the Deep Dark once again. Tunnel travelers. Sometime in the first 8 hours of Dundwell, the noise of the character's passage catches the attention of a mated pair of tunnel trawlers. These ancient and feral creatures have extremely sensitive scent and hearing, so even the characters taking precautions against excessive noise will likely be detected. The only way the characters can avoid the trawler's attention, okay, well then there's another check there. Alright, so let me see if I can take what is this. Okay. Reader paraphrase the following. Through the Deep Dark is remarkable for its variety of passageways, fungal life, and hazards. Toiling through the unrelenting darkness again quickly drains you of any fascination you might have once had for this realm. But as you push forward against the monotonous backdrop of yet another cavern, a flurry of sudden movement erupts above you. Two bipedal creatures out of nightmare deep down from each of the ceiling, each bearing a snarling bat-like face and a massive pair of hooked claws where its hand should be. And so once again, this encounter is avoidable, but you have to be really, really, really good at your stealth checks. They have the ability to sense a significant amount based on their hearing and based on their smell. So if you're able to set off either of those two, then you're more than likely going to end up in the encounter with them. Okay, the fungal forest at approximately the 10-hour point from Dundell. The passageway is transformed into a larger cavern filled with mushrooms, toadstools, and other fungi. As the characters enter into the fungal forest, reader paraphrase the following. As you continue along the route leading to Quinthrall, it begins to noticeably widen, becoming a gallery cavern between 40 and 60 feet side to side and rising from 30 to 50 feet in height. Small clusters of mushrooms and toadstools come into view, sporadic to start and then increasing in density and size. The previously uniform earthly smell of the Deep Dark has been replaced with the acrid smell of molten rot, even as isolated clusters of multi-hued fungus evolve into a continuous carpet of mushrooms spreading to both sides of the white cavern. After a few more minutes of moving forward, the density and height of the mushrooms increases even further, revealing the spectacular sight of a fungal forest whose largest specimens rise to over 10 feet tall. A 5-foot wide meandering path continues through the cavern, free of mushroom growth and still running roughly northwest. The fungal forest takes approximately 30 minutes to cross, but as the characters proceed, they notice that they are not alone. 11 moss lurkers shadow the characters, 5 on the right side of the path and 6 on the left. The small, strange humanoids make their home in the fungal forest and normally hide when any unknown creatures pass through their realm. However, a party of surface dwellers is too much of a curiosity to resist, causing the moss lurkers to keep pace with the characters for as long as they remain in the forest. Unless provoked, the moss lurkers do not menace the party in any way, being content to simply follow and observe. If any character hails them, a lone moss lurker cautiously peeks out from beneath the largest stems, making a strange sight with its long teeth and claws, a large nose, and shabby clothing. Though it's willing to speak with the party, the moss lurker's responses to any questions will be short and simple. It offers up that its people live in the fungal forest and have always done so, that their ancestors lived on the surface long ago, but came to the Deep Dark in search of a sacred mushroom grove, that they are stewards of the mushroom forest, and that creatures often pass through the forest bound for destinations unknown. The moss lurkers do not know who Marlip is, but can confirm that a brain gorger passed through their forest just a few days ago. Though their kind might normally be dangerous, this clan only has been in the Deep Dark for a few generations and have not forgotten their surface heritage. As such, the presence of a group of surface dwellers is more intriguing than threatening and will give the moss lurkers something to talk about for weeks. If they are attacked, then they might fight to the death to defend the mushroom grove. After traveling for 20 to 30 minutes, the characters reach the far side of the cavern and emerge from the fungal forest. From that point, the main passageway continues as it did before, varying in height and width, and with numerous side passages branching off at all angles. the beach party. If the characters do not rest after a fungal forest encounter, another 6 hours of steady travel begins them to the shores of a vast underground lake. After several hours of unrelenting subterranean sameness, the passage that you have been following once more widens to a broad cavern ahead of you. As you move forward, you feel a slight breeze, the first you have felt since coming underground. Then you hear what sounds like the rhythmic lapping of water against an unseen shore. As you continue to move forward, the astonishing sight of a massive underground lake opens up before you. Gentle waves spread across the inky black water. They lightly splash the rocky shoreline, but the lake is so wide that you cannot see its far shore. To the right, cliffs rise above the water, but would require a swim and then a sheer climb to access. To the left, a path runs along the shoreline, varying from 10 to 20 feet in width and seemingly the only way forward. Movement in the distance reveals a cluster of humanoids lurking in the gloom along the shoreline. A few more of them are in the water and appear to be beckoning or gesturing away from shore and toward the middle of the lake. These characters have come across 7 Deep Ones, led by a Deep One hybrid priest, members of a race of fish-like humanoids that long ago made their way from the surface and into the deep dark. Part of a larger colony dwelling in the shadows, the group has traveled to the side of the lake because the steep drop-off beyond the shoreline allows them to more easily pay homage to a creature that they worship, which lives in the deepest, darker lake. And so there are stat blocks for the hybrid, for the Deep One hybrid priests, and then the ordinary Deep Ones. Okay, information about wisdom checks. If the characters decide quickly to advance against the Deep Ones and interrupt their dark ritual, they have a chance to attack with surprise. If they linger, a Deep One worshipper spots them as the ritual unfolds. The Deep Ones then break off the ceremony to attack the heathen intruders, fighting to the death in their zeal. As the combat unfolds, the dragon eel simply observes, unmused by the complex, and does not menace the party unless attacked. However, if hailed in common or draconic, it responds to ask why the characters have attacked its servants and whether they now plan to serve in the Deep One's stead. It will be dismissive if the answer is no. Okay, so then they were worshipping the dragon eel, and then there is a stat block for the dragon eel. The dragon eel has no useful information for the characters. It can tell them that the rest of the Deep Ones live at the distant end of the lake, too far from the characters to reach if there are any means available to them. End of the road. At this point, the party will have Lisa spent a couple of days in the deep dark in pursuit of Marlip. Since leaving Dundelve just a few hours after the encounter with the Deep Ones, the characters finally begin picking up signs that they are closing in on their quarry. Their first such clue is the appearance of an odd constellation of sparkling blue powder in the passageway they are following. An hour or so later, the party encounters a section of passageway that features a 20-foot stretch of sediment on the floor and shows an obvious set of tracks. Okay, Act 6, Marlip's Revenge. As he lingered during his most recent stop, Marlip took notice of the disturbance behind him when the characters fought the Deep Ones. Fearing pursuit in his paranoia, the Brain Gorger now waits in ambush for whoever follows him. That said, he does not know that those who follow him are the same characters who expelled him from the lair not too long ago. Okay, stat block for Marlip. Although his power is still somewhat limited by the ongoing effect of the Tasties, Marlip is nonetheless confident in his ability to deal with whatever threat is behind him, making him content to sit and wait for the party to catch him. This is very interesting, because you see, as he is slowly coming down from the drug-induced stupor that he is in, he slowly does become a more and more threatening boss each time. As the characters round a bend in the passage, Brain Gorger will be seen waiting for them. Reader paraphrase the following. After long days of pursuit and a string of bizarre encounters in the deep dark, you round a bend in the passage and suddenly see the object of your chase before you. Marlip stands as if calmly waiting for an appointment with his hands clasped behind his back. His creepy face tentacles quiver and lash in the air as his eyes take you in. Before you can react, he speaks in a lisping and unnerving tone. So it is you, I should have known. It is not enough for you to drive me from my home. You now pursue me as I seek my penance. Fine. It has been hours since my last snack, so your arrival is timely. Marlip is 30 feet at the way at the beginning of this encounter. He targets the stoutest-looking warrior characters and does not attempt to feed until all of the characters have been rendered defenseless. But even though he does his best to destroy the characters, the lingering haze caused by the Tasties means that he does not have access to his enslavement ability, and his stunning pulse ability does not recharge after its first use. Further, because he has not been able to rest adequately, he has no 5th level spells prepared. There should still be a tough fight for the party, but if things go badly, the characters might discover that they have unexpected allies in their battle against the Brain Gorgers. Saved by the Majors. If luck and tactics allow the characters to maintain the upper hand against Marlet, the moment when he is dropped into unconsciousness triggers the appearance of the Kevlar army and Zangold Greenfield, along with another mage the characters will formally meet only in the next installment of this series. These ceaseless mages show up to save the Brain Gorger from the character's full wrath, leaving him unconscious and preventing them from killing him. In the event that Marlip is killed, the Ceaseless have ample resources to raise him or simply question him using Speak with the Dead. Alternatively, if the characters fare poorly, the mages appear when only one character is left standing, saving the party from Marlip's revenge. When the 3 Ceaseless mages appear, read or paraphrase the following, adjusting the circumstances that have inspired their appearance. You feel a sudden lurch or disorientation as 3 figures suddenly appear before you, surrounding Marlip as the magic swirls around you, preventing you from moving forward. 2 of the 3 are the Kevlar Arway and Zangold Greenfield, the high-handed mages from Dundell. The 3rd is someone you've never seen, silver-haired and older than the other 2, and radiating an air of firm command. As with the other mages, his fine robes bear the ceaseless sigil. With a laugh that doesn't reach his eyes, the older man speaks. Well, I guess we should thank you. We've been looking for this one for a while, and we'll soon have our answers. You can assure your Baron, the petty bureaucrat that he is, that Marlip will not be a bother to him or his people ever again. So if I understand the mission you are charged with, you can report it as a success. As such, I would recommend that you return to the service. However far ahead the Brain Gorger colony lies, I'm quite certain that only death awaits you there, as it awaited Marlip. I'm sorry that you don't have time for a proper conversation, but the Ceaseless nonetheless respect their depths. I will leave you with a letter of introduction bearing my seal. If presented in the right places of Terillium, it will gain you an audience with me or any of those who report with me. The Ceaseless are always looking for resourceful agents, and you undoubtedly have questions of your own. So, until then. The spellcaster then vanishes along with the 2 other Ceaseless operatives of Marlip. Left behind is a large paper envelope containing the promised letter, which identifies the mysterious mage as Rothan Westhill, a name not yet known to any of the characters. In addition to the letter, the envelope holds a token of return, taking the form of the Ceaseless insignia. The single-use magic item imparts the knowledge of its power with a successful Arcana check. The envelope also contains a promissory note that can be redeemed at the Temple of the Sun in Trillium in the staggering amount of 10,000 gold. In the event that the characters manage to loot the wealth of Dundelve in Earl Runnell's bedchamber, the promissory note can instead be a note indicated that the theft was discovered, but rather than facing reprisals, the characters will be allowed to keep the loot in exchange for services rendered. Trillium, ancient and vast. Trillium is a sprawling city hundreds of miles to the north of Nogni's Hold, located on the banks of the Azure Sea. With a population in the hundreds of thousands, Trillium is a commercial hub that exerts tremendous influence over the regions around it. It is also the home of the Ceaseless, but that group is far from the only criminal organization operating in the city. In fact, this is part of the reason why the Ceaseless has taken an interest in the smaller settlements of the north. Places like Agni's Hold represent untapped markets ripe for control. Okay, so then this is the resolution. Okay, just skipping an initial section that has to do with a check. Okay, that's going to take up that whole paragraph. The characters are in fact on only a few hours from the Brain Gorger colony, Quinthrall. However, as the Ceaseless Mage warned them, investigating that site is far beyond the abilities of the characters in the scope for this adventure. With the mission completed, the characters can return to Agni's Hold and report what they have done and learned. If they choose not to make use of the token to teleport back, then that return trip can be as eventful or as uneventful as you wish. Whenever the characters return to Agni's Hold to report to Baron Reinson, he is furious at the news that Marlip was taken by the Ceaseless. The Baron is paranoid to the point of distraction about the possible return of the Brain Gorger, and is enraged by the thought of a mere band of thugs interfering with the same business. The Baron pays the characters 1,000 gold each of the promised reward, but insists that the balance will be held until they return from the city of Trillium after confronting the Ceaseless. The Baron seeks to have the adventurers do as much damage as they can do to the criminal band that seeks to interfere with them and the affairs of the barony, and to kill Marlip or confirm that the Braingorger is destroyed. The details of his exchange and the additional inducements offered to the Baron will be taken up in the next module of this series, Trillium, the City of Enchantment. But even if the characters balk at taking the Baron's orders once more, the promissory note and the letter of introduction provide plenty of incentive to travel back to the legendary city. And so ends the campaign into the Deep Dark. This is a map of Dundelve. Let's see. This is a copy of the letter. To any and all who may bear witness, be advised that the conveyor of this document is known to me, Rothan Westill of the noble Westill House of Trillium. Kindly record the bearer of this document under my seal, with all due courtesies and respects, as if the conveyor was being introduced by me personally under seal, Rothan Westill. Then this is a list of just different groups of monsters and NPCs. So this is the second time that we've seen Marlip in a stat block. Because he was also in the Braingorger's Appetite, but a couple of the disablements that he received from inhaling the tasties was also a part of that encounter. I mean, it's also a part of this encounter, but he's a little bit stronger in this one than he was in the previous one. Alright, so then Earl Runnel is here, so are the Deep Ones, including the Hybrid Priest, the Dragon Eel, the Flail Snail, the Moss Lurker, the Tunnel Trawler, and here is the Gazetteer entry, which is probably the last readable part of this. Okay, Dundelve, populations, approximately 90 full-time residents. Alignment is lawful evil. Dundelve is an ambitious project undertaken by the criminal syndicate known as the Ceaseless. Members of the organization try to maintain a low profile in the world, where they are involved in illicit activities in the worst major in the world, in the most major cities. Okay, let me start over. Members of the organization try to maintain a low profile in the world where they are involved in illicit activities in most major cities. However, they do not have the same secrecy concerns when it comes to the Deep Dark. The Ceaseless founded the stronghold of Dundelve in an attempt to establish a presence in the underground realm, gaining access to the market's products and potential profits to be found there. Because dark vision is so useful in the Deep Dark, most of the guards and Ceaseless operatives in Dundelve are non-humans selected among the organization's general membership. The stronghold is built within a massive gallery cavern, which stretches over 100 feet across the Midwest, which has a ceiling that soars to nearly 90 feet above and runs generally in a north to south direction. The fortress is built on the west side of the cavern, where a broad, natural ramp leads up to a series of caves that were the former home of a clan of troglodytes. The Ceaseless forcibly evicted the troglodytes and used the plateau at the top of the ramp and the caves beyond the side of the fortress. The Deep Dark is a dangerous place, so Dundelve was built to be easily defended. The plateau stands approximately 40 feet above the cavern floor and is the base for an outer stone wall 50 feet wide and 100 feet long, with that long side of the fortress running north to south. At the south end of the fortress, the top of a natural ramp ends with two thick wooden gates that can be securely barred from within. The gates are emblazoned with the logo of the Ceaseless. Constructed by hires Svernefblin and Dwergar labor, the well-fitted stone walls of the stronghold rise 15 feet high and stand 3 feet thick. A gangway positioned 10 feet above the ground runs along the inside of the walls, letting defenders respond to attacks against any part of the stronghold. The gangway is accessible from any of the fortress's 4 towers, as well as by way of stairs spaced along the inside of the walls. Additionally, the walls and the gates of the stronghold are magically warded to alert the resident mages of anyone entering or leaving Dundelve by teleport, dimension door, or any similar magic. At each corner of the stronghold, a small tower rises an additional 10 feet above the top of the wall. Each of these watchtowers is occupied at all times by at least 3 guards and features a swivel-mounted ballista that is capable of firing in any direction. The Ceaseless Sukker Inn. Dundelve's inn and tavern is run by a dwarf named Jormund Hardback, who hails from a dwarfhold near the small human settlement of Port Venca, far to the north. Because it doubles as the mess hall for the guards of the Dundell, business is always brisk. Rooms at the Ceaseless Sucre are expensive for all but ceaseless operatives, costing 15 gold a day. Meals are likewise less expensive at 3 gold per day, but that price includes ale and wine. Meals at the inn are surprisingly good, given its location often include roast fowl, potatoes, and other root vegetables. The inn features a large common room and a kitchen on the first floor. 4 large rooms on the second floor are ostensibly designed for double occupancy, but can easily sleep 4. Jormund is a loyal, ceaseless operative, and he takes his responsibility at the Ceaseless Sucre very seriously. Okay, so this concludes Into the Deep Dark. This is the second module in a lengthy Deep Dark campaign, Underdark campaign, somewhat Cthulhian campaign, a Brain Gorger campaign. However, you would like to bear witness to it. But at any rate, thank you everybody for watching. Once again, if you are interested in purchasing this module, I do have the link up in the pin section of this stream. This is once again Into the Deep Dark by Gamehole Publishing, published by Alex Kammer, available through drivethrurpg.com. And so, additionally, once again, please don't forget that this stream is sponsored by the Well of the Worlds Kickstarter. Well of the Worlds is a upcoming module for Prowlers and Paragons Ultimate Edition, published by Mobius Worlds Publishing and Rem Alternus Productions, and written by Michael Serbrook. Check out the Kickstarter page through our link, tinyurl.com/Well of the Worlds, and sign up for the mailing list so you'll be prepared for when the book releases on April the 4th. Well, not the book. The book doesn't release on April the 4th. The Kickstarter supporting the book is going to be releasing April the 4th. Okay, I can't make that mistake. Anyways, thank you everybody once again for tuning in. I would like to do a raid now. Let's see. Who would we be available to? Who's available for us to visit tonight? Let's see. That one again, right about there. They might be interesting. So they're on right now. Okay. Okay, so right now I think it might be a good idea to let's go over to Power Nelson. Right now he's doing his regular Denny's Diner Just Chatting cast. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go over and pay a visit to him. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow evening, and I believe that I had intended to go back to writing the RPG tonight, but I didn't have an opportunity to prepare. So I'm probably going to do that tomorrow, pending having written a few lines that is going to begin the next project that I'm going to be featuring on writing the RPG. So, cheers, Brainy. Lots of love. Sorry for the low activity tonight. Don't worry about it. I still appreciate you always, Devin. Thank you very much for staying tuned in. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be doing writing the RPG. Until then, thank you, everybody. Have a good night. And thank you so much for watching.